We are currently in a renaissance of dragons. We are on the precipice of the age of dragons. So in today's Fate Report, we'll be going over the current state of dragons, how we got here, what to look forward to, and finally some things to look out for when it comes to our new dragon overlords. Let's start with what is unique about dragons. First of all, dragons are melee locked, so there is no dragon that can attack at range. Second of all, dragons have adaptive damage built into their weapons whenever they are targeting a ranged unit. Third, a majority of dragons are enemy phase or mixed phased focused units. I would argue that the only true player phase dragons we have are Niffle and the two Liliths. The reason this is important is because it allows us to look back at what originally knocked dragons out of the meta to begin with. Dragon effective weapons. Super effective weapons are absolutely destructive because they can often lead to one-round knockouts or dealing so much damage that the unit can no longer fight afterwards. That is extremely problematic for dragons who are mostly enemy or mixed phase focused. They need to be able to fight several rounds of combat in a row. So the question becomes, what has changed? Dragon effective weapons still exist everywhere. It's not like any units have been removed from the game. And the first part of the answer to that question is the same as any mixed phase unit: damage reduction. Now if we look back to the meta a few years ago, we can see that mixed phase units were already struggling to stay relevant. Damage was getting higher and higher, and many units couldn't handle 2 to 3 rounds of getting hit in the face. Fortunately, the answer arrived with base Merida in the form of Close Call. This speed-based damage reduction allowed mixed phase units a way to stay in the fight. The problem is that dragons don't have access to any speed-based damage reduction skills, like Close Call or Spurt. So it wasn't until much later, with the release of Saros, that dragons finally got access to damage reduction. But there were still two problems keeping dragons from entering the meta. First, Dragon Wall was a very exclusive skill, only available on a premium mythic unit at the time. And secondly, dragons showed up to the damage reduction party extremely late. At this point, damage reduction had already seen one indirect nerf in the form of Deadeye, and the second nerf was on the horizon with the release of Duolith. Unfortunately, this would once again keep dragons from making their splash into the meta. Let's move on to the second answer to the question. As damage reduction lost its meta dominance, a new type of meta took its place: save skills. And armored dragons had access to these skills at the same time as every other unit, which was amazing. But the problem was that there wasn't many great dragons to take advantage of save skills on their release, though you could make an argument for Duolith. And this is one of the major factors contributing to the rise of dragons. We are still in the middle of the save meta, and now there are a ton of amazing savior dragons. There's pretty much a savior dragon for every type of person. You want a speedy legendary savior? Let me introduce you to legendary Tiki. Want a red brave Edelgard? Here's Halloween Myrrh. Want a dragon that packs a nuke and a counterattack? There's Fallen Rhea. Want a self-healing dragon? Well, there's Halloween Grima. And of course, if you just want Brave Hector 2, Electric Boogaloo, here's Ascended Athune. Now you may be thinking that's great, but what makes a dragon any different than any other save unit? And the answer to that is they don't share the same weaknesses. While most save units are weak to things like Wind Sweep, dragons don't have to worry about that. And while many of the prominent save units target defense, dragons can target resistance against melee units and have adaptive damage against ranged units. This allows dragons to get KOs that other save units cannot. Another major factor is that dragons' damage reduction is still extremely strong. Let me clarify. Typically, most dragon slaying units fall into two categories: tomes and melee units, mostly swords. At the recording of this video, neither tome nor sword units have access to inheritable damage reduction penetrating specials, such as lethality or Deadeye. Now there are a few special exceptions, such as Legendary Byleth with Sublime Heaven, but once again, that is not inheritable. Dragon's damage reduction is also typically resistance based instead of speed based, or just a flat amount. This means that a lot of melee units struggle to hit the resistance needed to hit the damage reduction threshold. Once again, there are still extremely powerful dragon slayers in the meta, but not nearly as many as there once was. While dragon save units are a major reason dragons have become a major part of the meta, I would be underselling dragons if I didn't talk about the immense amount of support they've received in the past year. So let's discuss all the amazing dragon support units and premium dragon skills we've received. Less than a year ago, we began to receive an immense amount of dragon support, and the first unit to fall in this category is Niffle. Niffle not only granted damage reduction, but also speed and resistance support, and a flash smoke effect that could cripple enemy teams. Following up on her, we got Moosebell, who granted attack, defense, and true damage support, on top of a fatal smoke effect built into his weapon. We also got more access to premium skills like Dragon's Ire, which is essentially half of no follow-up, plus Quick Riposte 4. And we even got access to Dragon's Wrath, which granted additional damage reduction and true damage. And the Dragon support didn't stop there. Just recently, we received one of the best supported units in the game with Fallen Lilith. What makes this unit exceptional is that she combines powerful support in the form of no follow-up to her support partner, but she's also a teleporting powerhouse. One of the few player phase dragons we have in the game. The reason why this is such a big win for dragons is because there are very few ways to grant dragons full no follow-up outside of infantry dragons. Not only can Lilith offer that, it doesn't require that unit's B slot, which is massive. And, in my opinion, the best dragon support we've received yet, Fallen Ninian. Fallen Ninian is a legendary Azura of Dragon Dancers. Not only does she grant extra movement like legendary Azura, but she gives it to all dragons of all movement types, which is extremely powerful. On top of that, Ninian also has a ruse effect in her weapon, and an extremely optimal stat line. Now you may look at her attack and laugh, but realistically, she has an amazing stat line to offer the most important meta support in the form of Sudden Panic, Pulse Ties, and Infantry Pulse. Fallen Ninian is the full package, and is versatile enough to be whatever you need on your Dragon Emblem team. I believe as Dragon support continues to roll out, Fallen Ninian will prove to be a pivotal meta unit, and she will age extremely well. But that isn't all. We also received Speed Smoke 4 with the same banner, and while this is not a Dragon exclusive, it does finally give dragons access to speed-based damage reduction. As you can see, dragons have received a ton of new support options in just 1 year, and I believe this is nowhere near the end of it. But before we jump into the future dragon support that is on the horizon, let's talk about the final thing that has made dragons powerhouse meta threats: refines, remixes, and new dragons. Dragons have had a long history in Fire Emblem Heroes, and because of that, many dragons are just now getting their refines and remixes, giving them new life and new power. Units like legendary Tiki, Halloween Myrrh, and Base Thum got amazing refines that made them all top tier save units. Noe not only got an amazing refine that neutralizes penalties, but also Resplendent to give her even more stats, and the best of all, she's free to play. Legendary Grimma got an absolutely busted remix that has turned her into a premier mixed phase flying monster. And just recently, Duma's remix has made him a powerhouse in ether raids that can not only destroy key buildings, but can also be an annoying threat to deal with. We've also received new powerful dragon units like Legendary Corrin, Legendary Faye, Halloween Rhea, Spring Myrrh, and most recently Legendary Myrrh, who even has Warp Bubble, which is anti-teleport support. But if we want to talk about new dragons who have made a splash, we have to talk about Medius. Medius is an absolutely phenomenal unit, and he also shows signs of what may be on the horizon for future dragon units. First, when talking about Medius, we have to bring up the fact he introduced Canto Control, which has already made waves in both Summoner Duels and Ether Raids. He also introduced a unique effect known as On Guard, which neutralizes out of combat damage like bolt towers, traps, or even Fury recoil damage. But what I find the most interesting about Medius is his preference B skill, Assured Rebirth. This preference skill offers Medius 2 sources of damage reduction in one skill. One source based off resistance, and one based off how many dragons or staff allies are within 3 spaces. Now why I find this extremely interesting is because Medius is one of the few units that capitalizes off having dragon allies or running Dragon Emblem. The first dragon unit we've seen with this effect is Naga, who could get up to +9 to all stats from having dragon or dragon effective allies within 2 spaces. And this effect is very telling, because I believe this is where dragons are heading. I think it's very possible we begin to see dragons that capitalize on having other dragon allies. And because of the massive amount of new or refined dragons we've received, it is possible to have an extremely powerful Dragon Emblem team. One that could have a powerful dancer, a multitude of different powerful support options from true damage, damage reduction, to even no follow-up, and a variety of powerful save units to really make a destructive team. With that said, let's move on to the future of dragons in Fire Emblem Heroes. Now, before I continue my speculation, let's go over what is confirmed to be arriving in the next 6 months for dragons. The first thing to discuss is the refines and remix coming this year, and the first one coming is Naga in August. Naga is an extremely important unit and character in Fire Emblem. Not only is she the god of dragons, but she is also important because of 2 major factors. The first we talked about earlier, Divine Breath, which made Naga into a dragon that could capitalize on the power of other dragons. With a powerful refine, Naga could become the centerpiece of Dragon Emblem, a powerful force in the meta that could lead dragons to their salvation and meta dominance. On the other hand, she has a preference C skill, Divine Fang. Divine Fang grants dragon effectiveness to any unit who's adjacent to her at the beginning of her turn. With a powerful remix, Divine Fang may become the factor that leads to the downfall of dragons, as it can literally turn any powerful unit into a dragon slayer. Fortunately, Naga is an offense mythic, meaning she shouldn't show up on Aether Raid's defense, unless in the most extreme of situations. But it doesn't mean Naga can't show up in things like in summoner duels or possibly new game modes. Speaking of mythics, in September or November, we should be receiving Sothis' remix, and Refine. Sothis has been a long time meme in the Fae community. She has historically been a weak unit, and even more so because she is locked into Aether Raid's defense. But I do think we need to take a look at Sothis' unique factors as a dragon. First and most importantly, she doesn't have a dragon weakness, which is absolutely massive. This means Sothis can be a powerful unit on Dragon Emblem teams because she can possibly deal with Dragon Slayers. Secondly, Sothis has an amazing preference special, Sirius. Now Sirius has been underestimated for a long time due to it being unique to Sothis, but it is extremely powerful. It grants damage based off speed and heals, which are two effects mixed phase units would love to have. The best part is it's going to get a remix, meaning that Sirius 2 may be exceptionally powerful. Imagine if it were to get the Vital Astra or Deadeye treatment. Sothis is definitely a unit I would keep my eye out for, as she may be pivotal to the dragon takeover in the months to come. Next, we have two armored dragon refines that should hit by the end of the year, Winter Sothis and Nagi. Both of these units have the potential to become amazing save units. Winter Sothis with her lack of dragon weakness and Sirius, while Nagi has the unique niche of being amazing against colorless units and AoEs. Two things that have run rampant this year. Now the next remix I want to talk about doesn't belong to a dragon unit, but even so I think it could have a major impact on Dragon Emblem, Legendary Eliwood. Now while Legendary Eliwood support does work with any unit, to take full advantage of Vision of Arcadia, you need a dragon or beast ally on your team. This means that Eliwood works extremely well with dragons, and his remix may make this support even stronger. Imagine if Vision of Arcadia 2 grants +6 to all stats. That could make raid boss dragons absolutely horrifying. Just something to think about. Now the last guaranteed future prospect we have to discuss is Brave Tiki, and I left her last for a reason. I think Brave Tiki has the potential to be the dragon defining unit. Now obviously this is all speculation, but Brave units do tend to get special treatment, and we are essentially guaranteed to see 3 things from Brave Tiki. First, a preference weapon. Brave Tiki's preference weapon can be a lot of different things, and depending on her movement type, she can be an instantly powerful threat. She could be an armored unit, which would immediately make her a candidate for being a premier save unit, but she could also be the dragon unit that capitalizes off dragon synergy. Just like we've seen with Naga and Medius, Brave Tiki might be able to become an insanely powerful unit by relying on the dragons that came before her. The next thing we have to talk about is a preference skill, and once again this skill could be anything from a unique save skill to a unique B skill that differentiates her from other dragons. There's no way for us to know now, but just having a preference skill can be enough to make Brave Tiki into a premier unit. And the last thing isn't 100% guaranteed, but there is a good chance Brave Tiki will come with a completely new inheritable skill. We see this all the time with Brave units, especially last year. So then the question becomes, what new inheritable skill could Brave Tiki come with that could change the dragon meta forever? And my answer is a dragon-only inheritable special. The other thing that Intelligent Systems has been focusing on for the past year is specials. We've seen countless units who interact with specials like Duo Karam, Harmonic Sonya, Duo Ike, and we've seen new specials like Lethality and Vital Astra. And I don't think it's ridiculous at all that we might get a new dragon special. And who better than Brave Tiki to be the unit who introduces it to the game? The real question then becomes, what kind of special is it? Now obviously this is again speculation, but I could see it falling into 2 different categories. One, a special like Deadeye or Lethality, where it ignores damage reduction, or the more likely option in my opinion, a special like Vital Astra, where it adds damage reduction when some condition is met. Now the reason I'm leaning towards a Vital Astra-esque special is because the majority of dragons are mixed phase or enemy phase units, so a lot more dragons can capitalize on a damage reducing special. And because dragons have been tied to resistance up to this point, I could see it being an iceberg-like special with damage reduction tied to it. This could be the final piece of Exodia needed for dragons to be able to transcend to new heights and usher in the Age of Dragons. So what do you think of our new dragon overlords? Are dragons here to take over the meta? Will Brave Tiki usher in a new golden age? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. One last thing to consider are the dragon slayers on the horizon, like Brave Roy, Naga, and Throstyr's Remix, as well as the possibility that the meta shifts to Water Sweep to deal with this new dragon menace. Either way, I think dragons can no longer be ignored, and their take over the meta is only one step away from being complete. But only time will tell. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and keeps the content coming out. This has been Oblivion, and I'll catch you all later with more Fire Emblem Heroes.